Imagine this for a moment: every negative comment, every unexpected obstacle, every difficult person you encounter. What if none of it, absolutely none of it, could ever truly get under your skin or disrupt your inner peace again? You've seen them, haven't you? Those individuals who seem to walk through the storms of life with an almost unnerving calm, who command quiet respect without ever raising their voice. What if I told you their superpower isn't some exclusive gift they were born with, but actually a skill, a mindset that you can learn and master? Forget fleeting moments of calm or mere wishful thinking. By the end of this video, you will hold the practical master key to genuine emotional detachment, a proven path to remaining calm, steady, and incredibly powerful, no matter what challenges life throws your way. Are you ready to become truly unshakable? Continuing, perhaps with a slight, knowing smile, adopting a more conversational tone. Picture yourself moving almost effortlessly through life. Storms and challenges will still come. Of course they will. That's an inevitable part of the human experience. But now, in this envisioned state, you face them without that familiar ripple of anxiety, without the emotional turbulence that used to so easily overwhelm you. This isn't just some far-fetched fantasy, it's genuinely possible. And by the end of our time together today, you will have everything you need to truly begin mastering the art of emotional detachment, enabling you to remain calm, steady, and quietly powerful, regardless of what happens around you. You've probably encountered people who seem to naturally possess this ability, haven't you? Individuals who appear completely unaffected by chaos, who maintain an almost regal composure in even the worst situations. They seem to walk through life with a certain effortless grace. They are respected, often admired, and yes, frequently secretly envied. But here's a little secret they might not even articulate themselves. They aren't necessarily special or inherently different. They've simply learned, either consciously or through experience, something that most people don't yet realize: that profound emotional control and genuine detachment can be mastered by anyone who is willing to understand and consistently practice a few key principles. You see, the incredible power of emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling emotions altogether. That would make you a robot, not a master of yourself. It means you've learned to observe your emotions with a kind of mindful awareness, without being involuntarily controlled or hijacked by them. It's about remaining steady, centered, even when life inevitably pushes you hard. Have you ever noticed how easily most people lose themselves, their entire day, to seemingly trivial frustrations, a rude comment from a stranger, a frustratingly slow internet connection, an unexpected flat tire, and suddenly, their entire day feels ruined. Their mind spirals into negativity. They complain incessantly. Perhaps they lash out at undeserving targets, and they lose the hours of precious productivity and peace. Maybe this has happened to you more often than you'd like to admit. But take a step back and ask yourself this honest question: how many of these tiny, everyday frustrations will genuinely matter 5 years from now, or even 1 year from now? Exactly, almost none of them. And yet, we willingly, almost habitually, give these insignificant, fleeting events incredible power over our emotional state, over our inner peace. What if you decided, right here, right now, to consciously stop giving your precious mental and emotional energy to these insignificant, often uncontrollable, events? The secret to becoming truly unshakable, that bedrock of inner calm, starts right there, in deliberately deciding what truly deserves your emotional investment, and what simply doesn't. Because in reality, every reaction you have, every emotional surge, is, on some level, a choice. Yes, a choice you can learn to make more consciously. Think about someone who insults you. What's your typical, immediate, almost knee-jerk response? Is it a flash of anger, a wave of defensiveness, perhaps a pang of hurt feelings. But let's pause and take a step back from that common scenario. What if, instead, when faced with that insult, you could genuinely smile calmly, perhaps even thank them for sharing their perspective if you felt so inclined, and then simply walk away, internally unaffected? What happens then? I'll tell you what happens. You instantly take their power away. They likely expected you to react, to get flustered, to argue. They were perhaps, consciously or unconsciously, looking to feed off your emotional response. When you give them nothing, when you remain a calm, unmovable center, they are often left feeling powerless, their barb having found no purchase. This is the silent, immense strength that comes with mastering emotional detachment. And isn't it fascinating how the strongest, most respected individuals throughout history, the ones we still study and admire, have almost always been those who remained remarkably composed, even under immense pressure? They're the true leaders, the far-sighted visionaries, the ones who inspire profound loyalty and action in others, often simply by the calm, unwavering power of their presence. People instinctively sense their inner strength, they respect their self-mastery, and they naturally want to follow or align themselves with that kind of energy. Why is that? Do you think it's because genuine control of self is, and always has been, the highest and most potent form of influence? When people realize that you cannot be easily shaken, that your emotional state isn't at the mercy of external events or their opinions, they understand, implicitly, that you possess a deep inner strength, a resilience, that perhaps they themselves lack. This naturally grants you respect, often without you ever needing to demand it or even consciously seek it. Have you ever noticed, on the flip side, that those who constantly, desperately seek external approval, those who need validation from others to feel good about themselves, are almost always emotionally unstable? One negative comment, one perceived slight, can throw their entire day, their entire sense of self, completely off balance. But people who consciously stop chasing that external validation, who learn to source their worth from within, they become truly, authentically powerful. They're no longer like puppets, their emotional strings being pulled by every fleeting external opinion or judgment. Think about yourself, right now, in this very moment. How much of your daily actions, your choices, even your thoughts, are subtly or overtly dictated by a perceived need for others' approval? What if, starting tomorrow, you woke up and genuinely, deeply, stopped needing it? Can you even begin to imagine the profound sense of freedom, the crystal mental clarity, the powerful aura of unshakable confidence you would naturally carry if other people's opinions, positive or negative, held little to no ultimate power over your inner state? This isn't about becoming arrogant, dismissive, or uncaring towards others. It's about cultivating an unshakable clarity of purpose, a deep connection to your own values. Because when you're crystal clear about your own goals, your own principles, those trivial, often uninformed, opinions of others begin to lose all their relevance, all their sting. So, the next time someone criticizes you, before you react, ask yourself one simple, clarifying question: does this particular person's opinion really matter to me in the grand scheme of my life? Are they someone I deeply respect? Someone whose judgment and wisdom I genuinely value enough for their words to warrant my significant attention and emotional energy? Most of the time, if you're truly honest with yourself, you'll realize the answer is a resounding no. But what about criticism that does potentially matter? What about constructive criticism from genuinely respected sources, from mentors, from those who truly have your best interests at heart? Should you just ignore that too, in the name of detachment? Absolutely not. But even then, the key is to learn to skillfully separate the potential value of the feedback from the emotional sting it might initially deliver. Don't react immediately. Pause, breathe, Analyze it calmly, objectively. Take what's genuinely useful for your growth. Disregard the rest, the emotional charge, the delivery, any unhelpful parts, and then calmly move forward. Because when you learn to process all forms of criticism objectively, without raw emotion clouding your judgment, you become virtually unstoppable. Every perceived setback then has the potential to become a valuable stepping stone. Every piece of criticism, even a harsh one, can become a tool for your continuous improvement. Consider, for a moment, someone whose business has just completely collapsed. For most people, that's a devastating, life-altering blow, but for someone who has cultivated emotional detachment, it's still painful. Yes, they're still human, but it's also, crucially, just data. It's feedback. It's a set of lessons they can then use to rebuild, often stronger, smarter, and more resilient than before. And that's precisely why those who master this invaluable skill of emotional detachment consistently outperform, outmaneuver, and outlast those who are constantly at the mercy of their emotional whims. It's not that emotionally detached people don't care about anything. Quite the opposite. It's precisely because they deeply care, but they care profoundly about the right things. They care about their long-term goals, their core values, their inner peace, their capacity for rational action, not about temporary discomfort, fleeting setbacks, or the volatile opinions of others. So, how can you begin to practice this powerful skill of detachment in your everyday life? You start small. The next time you're stuck in traffic, that common crucible of frustration, instead of immediately succumbing to anger and impatience, consciously see it as an unexpected opportunity to pause, to breathe deeply, to reflect, to simply observe your thoughts without judgment. You can literally turn a moment of inconvenience into a valuable mindfulness practice. And as you practice this with small annoyances, you can gradually expand the method into larger, more significant setbacks. A relationship ends unexpectedly. Instead of being completely consumed by grief or anger, you still allow yourself to feel those emotions. Remember, detachment isn't about suppression, but you also pause. You breathe, you observe your emotions without being entirely swept away by them. You allow yourself to feel the pain, the disappointment, without letting those feelings dictate your immediate actions or your entire outlook on life. The beautiful truth is that genuine emotional detachment doesn't rob you of joy or other positive emotions, quite the opposite. It actually enhances your capacity for genuine joy. When you're not constantly being shaken by minor irritations, petty disappointments, or the anxieties of everyday life, your overall experience of life becomes calmer, clearer, and far more genuinely fulfilling. Imagine a skilled sailor navigating a stormy ocean. Does he panic and lose his head at every single crashing wave? At every fierce gust of wind? Of course not. He remains focused. He calmly adjusts his sails, assesses his course with a clear mind, and keeps his vessel moving steadily forward towards his destination. That sailor, in this analogy, is you. Life will always bring its waves, its storms, but your calm, considered reaction to them ultimately determines your safe and successful arrival at your chosen shores. This leads us to an incredibly important, almost foundational idea. Your internal state profoundly shapes your external reality. When your mind remains calm, centered, and composed, your external environment, your experience of it, soon begins to follow suit. Have you ever met someone whose very presence just feels calming, reassuring, someone who seems to radiate a quiet confidence and an unshakable stability without ever needing to raise their voice or make a grand display? That, right there, is the subtle but immense power of inner composure, an energy that silently commands respect, trust, and admiration from those around them. So, how do you become such a person? You begin by consciously training your mind, Practice incorporating daily moments of stillness into your routine, perhaps through meditation, quiet reflection, or simply being in silence, observing your thoughts as they arise and pass. Without judgment or attachment, you build mental discipline by actively, intentionally choosing patience over anger, calm observation over impulsive reaction, thoughtful response over knee-jerk reactivity. Eventually, with consistent practice, you will start to notice something truly extraordinary: the world around you. The challenges you face will begin to subtly bend to your calmness, rather than the other way around. Understand this clearly: true strength, the kind that endures and inspires, isn't loud. It doesn't need to boast, to dominate, or to react violently to prove itself. True strength lies in quiet power, steady, unwavering, and self-contained. It's found in responding to life, not merely reacting to it. Think carefully about the word reaction itself. Reactions are often automatic, uncontrolled, almost reflexive. A response, however, is deliberate, thoughtful, and consciously chosen. So, the next time stress begins to rise within you, the next time you feel that familiar urge to react impulsively, consciously choose to respond instead. Practice this every single day, in small ways and large, and soon you will find that the automatic, unhelpful reaction patterns begin to fade entirely. Calm, considered responses will become your natural, ingrained default. Think again about how you typically handle criticism. Instead of instinctively reacting defensively, try responding by listening patiently, truly seeking to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it. Instead of immediately explaining yourself or launching into a defense, try responding by objectively considering their viewpoint, looking for any kernel of truth or useful feedback. Instead of succumbing to emotional turmoil, respond by calmly deciding whether their critique genuinely helps you grow or if it's something you can simply acknowledge and let go. And here's something that might surprise you. Silence itself can often be one of your most powerful and strategic responses. Consider a negotiation. For example, someone makes a demand. They want an immediate answer. They're trying to pressure you. What happens if you just quietly pause? Take a moment to think, and remain silent for a moment longer than is comfortable for them. Often, they grow uncomfortable. They start second-guessing their own position. Suddenly, your deliberate silence puts you in control, subtly but undeniably shifting the balance of power. This isn't just abstract theory. It works in virtually every human interaction. Silence allows you to observe more keenly, to think more strategically, to gather more information, and crucially, to reveal less of your own hand. Silence commands respect precisely because it's so rare in a world filled with noise, and because it signals immense self-control. Have you noticed how many people talk endlessly, often revealing their insecurities, their weaknesses, their lack of thought, through constant, unreflective chatter? Silence, however, when used intentionally, preserves mystery, commands attention, and grants a certain quiet authority. Imagine yourself in future difficult conversations. Visualize how staying calm, how using thoughtful silence, how observing without immediate judgment makes others naturally gravitate towards you, makes them respect your composure. Silence, in this way, will become your powerful ally, a subtle but incredibly effective companion in your journey towards emotional mastery. Mastering this strategic use of silence is, in many ways, about mastering your emotions entirely. Your emotional state then becomes a tool you can wield with wisdom. Rather than a trap you constantly fall into, you begin to recognize emotions, anger, sadness, frustration, even fleeting joy, as just temporary visitors, not permanent residents of your inner world. You allow them to pass through you, acknowledging them without judgment, but without desperately holding onto the anger, the resentment, or even the attachment to a specific outcome. You see, the greatest masters of emotional detachment throughout history and even today are neither emotionless voids nor uncaring stoics in the colloquial sense. They feel deeply, they engage fully, but they simply understand with absolute clarity that nothing external, no event, no person, no fleeting circumstance, should ever be granted the power to control their inner peace. This, ultimately, is your goal: to live each day deeply aware, deeply involved, deeply connected to the world around you, yet, at your core, to remain completely untouched, unperturbed by life's inevitable turbulence. Challenges will undoubtedly come, yes, but you will learn to stand calm in their midst. Criticism may arise, yet you will remain steady and centered. Pressure will inevitably build, yet you will find yourself remaining remarkably still, observant, and in control. Think about it carefully. How often, perhaps even daily, do you currently let relatively minor inconveniences dictate the entire mood and trajectory of your day? A missed train that throws off your schedule, a spilled coffee staining your shirt right before an important meeting, or someone thoughtlessly cutting you off in traffic. These small things can quickly escalate your stress levels. Can't they? But why? Why do we so willingly hand over our precious emotional peace, our mental clarity, to situations that, in the grand scheme of things, hold absolutely no long-term significance? The hard truth is, most people live in a perpetually reactive state. They allow almost every external event, every minor hiccup, to provoke them emotionally, to pull their strings. But ask yourself this, honestly, does getting angry, frustrated, or anxious in those moments ever truly help the situation? Does it genuinely improve the outcome, or enhance your overall well-being? Rarely, if ever. Instead, it typically drains your vital energy, clouds your judgment, and often leads you into completely unnecessary conflicts and further stress. So, how can you consciously begin to break free from this exhausting, disempowering cycle? It all begins with a single, potent ingredient: awareness. Start by observing yourself keenly in those typically stressful situations. Watch your emotions as they begin to rise. Try to pinpoint that exact moment, that critical juncture, when you feel yourself starting to lose control, when reactivity begins to take over. This simple, yet profound, act of mindful awareness creates a small but crucial space, a space between stimulus and response. And it is within that precious space that you can consciously choose a different, more empowered, more detached response. Consider athletes performing at the absolute top of their game. They don't just train their bodies to peak physical condition, they train their minds with equally rigorous discipline. They learn to anticipate pressure, to prepare mentally for the roar of the crowd, the stakes of the competition. They visualize every possible scenario, every potential challenge, and they mentally rehearse their calm, focused responses. So, when the actual pressure arrives, when the critical moment is upon them, their reaction is often calm, calculated, and precise, not frantic, scattered, and emotional. You, too, can practice this very same technique in your own life. The next time you anticipate facing a stressful situation, whether it's a difficult conversation at work, a challenging dynamic in your relationships, or just the everyday pressures of life, take a few moments beforehand to visualize your ideal calm response. Mentally rehearse how you will stay composed, detached, and rational, no matter what unfolds. Over time, with consistent practice, this mental rehearsal actually begins to rewire your brain, training it to naturally default to calmness and clarity rather than panic and reactivity. You've probably heard the phrase, "stay calm under pressure," countless times. But have you ever truly considered how incredibly powerful that ability actually makes you? Remaining calm in the eye of the storm doesn't mean you never feel the pressure. It means you've mastered your internal emotional responses to the point where external situations no longer dictate or control your inner state. When others around you begin to panic, you become the welcome voice of reason, the steady hand. When others devolve into arguments or unproductive fights, your deliberate silence and clarity can often speak far louder and with more authority than their emotionally charged words ever could. Your cultivated calmness becomes your greatest asset, a quality that is often deeply admired and respected by everyone around you. And yet, despite its power, so many people still instinctively fear silence, don't they? Why is that? Perhaps because silence can feel vulnerable. It can expose our own insecurities and anxieties if we're not comfortable with ourselves. But once you learn to embrace silence, once you allow yourself to become truly comfortable within its stillness, it transforms from something to be avoided into your strongest, most versatile ally. It is in silence that true clarity often emerges. It is in silence that your authentic intentions, your deeper wisdom, can become palpably obvious, both to yourself and to others. Think about someone you deeply admire, someone you consider truly wise or powerful. Chances are, they're not the loudest, most garrulous person in the room, are they? More often, they are the quiet observers, the ones who listen more than they speak, carefully choosing their words when they do decide to contribute. And when they speak, everyone instinctively listens. Why? Because their preceding silence has amplified their words, giving undeniable weight, presence, and authority to their thoughts. You possess this power too. Begin practicing the intentional use of silence, deliberately, when someone demands an immediate response. When you feel pressured to speak before you're ready, consciously pause, allow a moment, or even several moments, of considered silence. Notice how quickly, how profoundly, the dynamics of the interaction can shift. Suddenly, you're not just reacting impulsively, you're thoughtfully responding, making deliberate, powerful, and well-considered decisions. But mastering silence isn't just a useful tactic in conflicts or negotiations, it's equally, if not more, powerful in your personal relationships. How often have you later regretted something said impulsively, in a moment of anger or frustration? Words spoken carelessly, without thought, can create lasting, sometimes irreparable, damage. Yet silence, when carefully and compassionately used, can often heal, build bridges, and foster deep respect. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine a heated argument with someone you deeply care about, a partner, a family member, a close friend. Words are flying, emotions are running high, and escalation seems inevitable. What if, instead of immediately retaliating with your own defensive or accusatory words, you consciously chose to pause, to become silent, to simply, attentively listen to what they're trying to express, even if it's cloaked in anger? In that critical moment, your deliberate silence can communicate far more compassion, strength, and willingness to understand than a torrent of reactive words ever could. It can completely shift the energy of the interaction, often diffusing tension rather than escalating the conflict. But true emotional mastery, true detachment, goes even deeper than managing reactions or using silence strategically. It ultimately requires the profound ability to let go, completely, of your attachment to outcomes you fundamentally cannot control. This is, perhaps, the hardest part of the journey for many, learning to fully accept uncertainty and to consciously release that often painful attachment to specific results. Think about the last major disappointment you faced. Did you spend days, perhaps even weeks, endlessly replaying the scenario in your mind, torturing yourself with what ifs and if onlys? That kind of mental loop is a powerful trap, one that keeps you stuck in the past, emotionally tethered to what was, and unable to fully embrace or move forward into what could be. Now, imagine approaching future setbacks entirely differently. Imagine you could almost instantly accept outcomes, good or bad, without the debilitating emotional turmoil. This isn't about resignation or apathy, it's about profound empowerment. It's about recognizing, with crystal clarity, what you can control, your responses, your actions, your effort, your attitude, and consciously, deliberately releasing your grip on what you cannot control, other people's choices, unforeseen events, the inherent unpredictability of life itself. This transformative mindset turns perceived failures into invaluable lessons, setbacks into powerful stepping stones for growth. It frees your mind from a tremendous amount of unnecessary pain, frustration, and anxiety. Suddenly, life begins to feel less like a constant battle and more like a flowing river, fluid, adaptable, and ultimately, deeply fulfilling. Consider the story of someone who lost their job unexpectedly. Initially, they might be devastated, consumed by worry about the future and perhaps resentment about the past. But after consciously practicing emotional detachment, after allowing the initial shock to pass without being consumed by it, they begin to realize that the job loss, while painful, wasn't necessarily personal. It was simply reality unfolding. The chapter closing, they can then pivot more quickly, using the setback not as a dead end, but as an unexpected chance to grow, to explore new skills, to pursue a passion they had long deferred, or perhaps to start something new and entirely their own. And often, in a surprisingly short amount of time, they find themselves happier, more fulfilled, and sometimes even grateful for the redirection that the initial failure provided. This is the immense power that true emotional detachment offers. It's not about becoming indifferent or ceasing to care, it's about becoming wise, about learning to skillfully separate your core emotional well-being from the inevitable fluctuations of external events. Because when your internal peace, your sense of self, depends solely on circumstances outside of yourself, you are perpetually vulnerable, easily shaken, constantly at the mercy of things you cannot control. But when your peace is internal, when it's rooted deeply within your own cultivated mindset, your own values, you become, in a very real sense, almost invincible to the external storms. The practice of emotional detachment can be further enhanced and solidified by incorporating simple daily routines like meditation or mindfulness exercises. Each day, try to spend just 10 minutes quietly observing your thoughts without judgment. Without attachment, watch your emotions as they rise and fall, like waves in the ocean, never desperately gripping onto them, never trying to force them away. Over time, this consistent practice literally trains your brain to recognize emotions as temporary, fleeting states, not as permanent, unshakable truths about you or your reality. Another powerful daily practice is journaling. Each evening, take a few moments to reflect on the day's events, specifically noting situations where you reacted emotionally versus those where you managed to respond more rationally and with detachment. Gradually, as you do this, you will begin to notice recurring patterns in your triggers and your responses. You will see, with increasing clarity, how consistently practicing emotional detachment measurably improves your outcomes, your relationships, and your overall sense of happiness and well-being. Remember, achieving this kind of emotional detachment, this inner mastery, is a journey, not a destination. There will undoubtedly be days when you feel shaken, frustrated, or upset by life's events, and that's perfectly okay. You're human. The key is not to aim for some impossible state of perpetual, emotionless bliss, but rather to cultivate awareness. Learn to recognize emotional turmoil as a signal, a message, not as a definitive sentence condemning you to suffering. Each challenge you navigate with a bit more detachment, each emotional storm you weather with a bit more composure, strengthens your resolve, reinforces your emotional discipline, and moves you incrementally closer to that ideal of total mastery. And one day, perhaps sooner than you think, you will face a situation that previously would have completely destroyed your peace. That would have sent you spiraling, and instead, you will find yourself smiling calmly, observing your emotions without losing control, and responding deliberately, thoughtfully, powerfully. In that transformative moment, you will understand, on a visceral level, what true emotional power really feels like. It's peaceful, it's confident, it's unshakable, it's completely, wonderfully free from undue external influence. Now, truly imagine waking up each and every day knowing, with a deep, quiet certainty, that nothing external can truly disturb your inner peace unless you consciously allow it to. Imagine the profound mental freedom, the crystal clarity, the unshakable strength you would carry with you everywhere you go. No criticism, no setback, no unexpected external event could ever again steal your peace, because your peace would no longer be dependent on those things. That is the incredible promise of mastering emotional detachment, and it's available to you right now. Starting today, choose calmness over chaos, choose considered responses over knee-jerk reactions, and choose to wield silence as your powerful, strategic ally. Step by step, choice by choice, you will build a mindset that remains steady, clear, and truly unstoppable, no matter what life, in its infinite unpredictability, throws your way. Have you ever wondered why people are so naturally, almost magnetically, drawn to calm, composed individuals? It's because genuine calmness radiates an undeniable strength and a deep sense of reliability. When you're consistently composed, you're signaling something incredibly powerful to the world. You have complete, conscious control over yourself, and by extension, you're better equipped to handle the situations you encounter with grace and effectiveness. People instinctively trust and feel safer around someone who demonstrates consistent emotional stability. They sense that you're someone who can lead effectively if needed, support others confidently without becoming overwhelmed, and navigate life's often unpredictable waters without drowning in your own emotional chaos. Think about the historical leaders, the visionaries, who've inspired millions throughout the ages. They often shared a striking, undeniable commonality: profound emotional resilience. They were generally not those who shouted the loudest, who lost their temper easily, or who were swayed by every shifting wind of public opinion. They were, more often than not, the ones whose calm, unwavering resolve steered nations, built empires, and inspired transformative movements. They understood something incredibly profound, that emotions, left uncontrolled and unexamined, inevitably cloud judgment and significantly diminish clarity. By remaining emotionally detached, by maintaining their inner composure, these remarkable individuals could almost always see situations clearly, assess options rationally, and respond appropriately and effectively, no matter the surrounding circumstances or pressures. Now, imagine applying this very same wisdom, this same level of emotional mastery, in your own professional life. Most workplace conflicts, if you really analyze them, occur not because of fundamental, irreconcilable disagreements, but because raw emotions take control. Frustration, anger, resentment, ego, these common emotions can quickly escalate simple misunderstandings into major, productivity-destroying conflicts. But what if you became the person in your workplace, in your team, who consistently remained composed, thoughtful, and clear-headed, even, and especially, under intense pressure? Soon, your colleagues, your superiors, even your clients, would begin to notice something truly special, something refreshingly different about you. In tense meetings, your calm, well-reasoned suggestions would naturally stand out. When disagreements inevitably arise, your composed, Respectful demeanor would often turn potential conflicts into productive, solution-oriented discussions. Your cultivated emotional discipline would naturally position you as a genuine leader, someone dependable, mature, and trustworthy, regardless of your official title. And yet, despite all these benefits, many people still fear becoming emotionally detached, mistakenly equating it with a cold loss of empathy or a lack of genuine warmth. But this, in most interpretations of true emotional mastery, couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, genuine emotional detachment, paradoxically, enhances your capacity for true empathy. Why? Because it allows you to engage compassionately and connect deeply with others without losing yourself. Without becoming completely overwhelmed or enmeshed in their emotional turbulence, you become the stable force, the calm anchor that others can often rely on during their own personal storms. You can remain empathetic, supportive, and deeply human, yet largely unaffected by the negativity and drama that might be swirling around you. But emotional detachment isn't just beneficial in your external interactions, it profoundly, positively impacts your internal world as well. Consider your mind as a garden. Left untended, without conscious cultivation, weeds, in the form of negative thoughts, anxieties, and reactive emotions, will rapidly take over, choking out the potential for growth and beauty. But if you carefully, diligently manage this inner garden, consciously removing negativity, uprooting unhelpful thought patterns, and actively cultivating calm, positive states of mind, you create an internal environment where peace, creativity, and profound clarity can truly thrive. Each day, make it a practice to identify those emotional weeds, thoughts rooted in anxiety, anger, frustration, or fear. Consciously acknowledge their presence, but don't feed them with your precious attention or energy. Instead, calmly redirect your mind toward thoughts of gratitude, acceptance, or constructive, solution-focused thinking. Over time, this consistent practice literally reshapes your mental landscape. Negativity gradually loses its suffocating grip, replaced by a consistent, empowering state of emotional clarity and inner strength. Let's take another practical scenario. You face unexpected financial stress, a situation that sends most people into a panic, consumed by anxiety about the future. But someone who has cultivated emotional detachment, while still acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, assesses it logically. They calmly begin planning their next steps. Instead of spiraling emotionally, they use their cultivated clarity to find viable solutions, to explore new opportunities, to regain financial control. They experience the stress. Yes, they are not immune to it, but they never allow it to overwhelm them, to define them, or to paralyze their ability to act constructively. In relationships, too, emotional detachment proves to be truly transformative. How many conflicts, how many heartaches arise simply because emotions escalate beyond reason, because reactions become more important than resolutions. Imagine your partner or a close friend says something that feels hurtful. Your immediate, untrained reaction might be defensiveness, anger, or withdrawal, but emotional detachment offers a powerful alternative. Instead of reacting impulsively, you learn to pause. You ask yourself, why are they really saying this? What's the deeper issue, the unmet need, the underlying fear? Perhaps, behind their words, this kind of detached, genuine curiosity can quickly diffuse tension. Instead of arguing and escalating, you find yourself engaging more constructively, seeking to understand rather than to win. Your calmness, your non-reactivity, can shift the entire conversation towards mutual understanding and resolution, rather than further conflict. Over time, your relationships can deepen, becoming richer, more resilient, and more fulfilling, precisely because you've learned to navigate the often choppy emotional waters without sinking the ship. Another valuable perspective here is understanding your ego's often significant role in your emotional reactions. Most truly negative, unproductive emotional responses, intense anger, reflexive defensiveness, corrosive jealousy, are, at their core, driven by the ego. Your ego feels threatened, criticized, or diminished, and it instinctively reacts to protect itself, often in ways that are ultimately counterproductive. But ask yourself honestly, does fiercely defending your ego, in the heat of the moment, ever truly improve your life or your relationships in the long run? Rarely. Usually, it just creates more harm, more distance, more misunderstanding. Emotional detachment involves learning to step outside the often insistent demands of the ego. To view events and interactions more objectively, you begin to realize that most criticism isn't a fundamental attack on your entire being, it's just words, often reflecting more about the speaker than about you. Rejection isn't always deeply personal, it's often simply a mismatch of needs, timing, or desires. Failures aren't total humiliations, they are invaluable feedback, crucial data for future growth. Freeing yourself from these constant ego-driven reactions opens you up to genuine self-improvement, stronger and more authentic relationships, and a profound, unshakable inner peace. Practicing gratitude daily can also significantly reinforce your emotional detachment. Gratitude consciously shifts your focus away from what's wrong, what's lacking, or what's frustrating, and directs it instead toward what's already good, what's already fulfilling, what you already have in your life. Each day, make an active effort to notice and genuinely appreciate the positive aspects of your existence, no matter how small they might seem. This consistent practice of gratitude naturally builds resilience, because it reminds you, over and over again, that your true happiness and your deepest peace are primarily internal states, not things to be dictated or determined by ever-changing external circumstances. Consider someone who is consistently grateful, even, and especially, in difficult times. They always manage to find something to appreciate: supportive friends, a new learning opportunity born from a challenge, their own inner strength and resilience. This positive, appreciative mindset rapidly transforms perceived problems into potential opportunities, significantly reducing emotional turmoil and enhancing overall contentment and well-being. Moreover, emotional detachment allows you to set much healthier, much clearer boundaries with others. When you're not constantly emotionally reactive, when you're not operating from a place of fear or a desperate need for approval, you can clearly recognize when others are beginning to cross your established boundaries. And, importantly, you can calmly and assertively communicate your limits without resorting to anger, resentment, or passive aggression. People then quickly learn to respect these boundaries because they are enforced consistently, calmly, and without unnecessary drama or negativity. This, as you can imagine, dramatically improves the quality of your interactions, both personally and professionally. Interestingly, and perhaps surprisingly to some, emotional detachment can also significantly boost your productivity and creativity. When your precious mental energy isn't being constantly wasted on trivial frustrations, persistent worries, or unproductive interpersonal conflicts, you gain an incredible amount of mental bandwidth, an expansive clarity. This clarity, in turn, enhances your focus, allowing for deeper, more effective thinking, more innovative problem-solving. Tasks that previously seemed daunting, difficult, or overwhelming often become much more manageable, even enjoyable, simply because your mind remains consistently calm, clear, and centered. To continually reinforce this state of emotional detachment, consider establishing simple daily routines that help to anchor your mind. Regular physical exercise, consistent mindfulness practices or meditation, or engaging in hobbies that demand deep concentration, such as art, Writing, playing a musical instrument, or even complex puzzles can significantly stabilize your emotional baseline. These activities provide healthy outlets for stress. They reinforce calmness and patience, and they cultivate mental discipline. Over time, they become powerful, almost automatic, tools for maintaining a consistent state of emotional equilibrium, even amidst external chaos. Ultimately, emotional detachment isn't just a tool or a technique. It's a profound philosophy of life. It teaches you to choose acceptance over resistance, calmness over chaos, and genuine empowerment over a sense of victimhood. It fundamentally changes how you perceive and interact with your entire world. You no longer see life as something that just randomly happens to you. You begin to see it as something you actively shape through your conscious reactions. Your chosen mindset, your deliberate actions. Each day then becomes a fresh practice, another valuable chance to reinforce calmness, to cultivate clarity, and to build your resilience. Gradually, this consistent approach transforms not just your momentary states, but your enduring character. Your friends, your family, your colleagues, they will undoubtedly notice the shift. They will respect you more deeply, not necessarily because you've changed dramatically on the outside, but because you've gained such profound, admirable internal control. You become that stable, dependable presence, someone they look up to, someone they might even aspire to emulate. Consider, for a moment, the legacy you want to leave behind. Is it one of emotional volatility and constant reactivity? Or is it one of calm strength, thoughtful wisdom, and profound emotional intelligence? Every single interaction, every single day, offers you a choice to embody emotional detachment, to consciously choose calmness over chaos, response over reaction, and each time you make the conscious choice, you reinforce your emotional mastery, ultimately shaping the quality of your life and your positive impact on all those around you. Embrace this path wholeheartedly. Commit today, right now, to becoming someone whose emotional resilience genuinely defines them. Because when you truly master your emotions, you, in a very real sense, master your life. Challenges then become mere opportunities for growth. Setbacks transform into valuable stepping stones. Criticism becomes fuel for your continuous improvement. And above all, you become truly, wonderfully, unshakable, calmly and confidently navigating the beautiful complexity of life with unwavering strength, profound clarity, and enduring peace. To keep strengthening your Stoic mindset and dive even deeper into these principles, I highly recommend you click on the video that's being shown on your screen right now.